We're very honored to have the President of the European Council in our midst. He agreed to address us despite the challenging agenda he is facing these days. Now, we thought that at the start of this academic year, it would be interesting to hear his point of view on the subject beyond the economy. Your Royal Highness, Your Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Herman van Rompuy.
Monseigneur, meneer de minister, Mr. Chairman, Mr. Dean, beste Philip, I mean the Dean. Dear professors, dear students, ladies and gentlemen. It is a pleasure to speak here tonight to inaugurate the academic year 2012-2013. The main reason is that I am an honorary doctor of both the University of Louvain and the University of Ghent. This school joins the best of both. On top of this, André Vlerick happened to know my father very well. Both of them owed a lot to Father Gaston Eyskens, a long-serving Prime Minister and professor in economics. André Vlerick was a special man. Having had all his responsibilities, his motto was vrij en frank, free and frank. In the new name, Vlerick Business School, you remain true to the values and achievements of André Vlerick, your founder, while opening the school to the fiercely international world of today and tomorrow. The Romans would have said, nova et vetera. You link a treasure of the past with the opportunities offered by the future. That capacity to bridge the past and the future is, in my view, not only essential for an institution like this school. No, it is at the heart of the European way of life. It is what makes our continent unique. Tonight, here in front of you, celebrating a school whose founder and name-giver lived throughout the whole of the 20th century, during which Europe was torn apart and rebuilt itself again. 1990, Vlerick was born in 1919 and 1990, from the Versailles Peace Conference until the German unification. I should like to start by taking a wide view and going to the fundamentals. Since 1945, European states have worked together, ever more intensively, securing peace on the continent and prosperity for our citizens. It is worth keeping in mind why today we are concentrating all our efforts on overcoming the economic and financial crisis together. You always have to keep in mind where you come from and what is the meaning of your endeavors. Ladies and gentlemen, it is about much more than just monetary operations. The European project itself is at stake. Our union matters to us for countless reasons, but ultimately, it matters because Europeans have experienced in the past, tragically, what happens if we all go alone. And ultimately, it matters because we know acutely that we must join forces today if we are to count among the global players of tomorrow. The truth is sometimes very simple. Our union is not just worthwhile, it is vital. Member states know it, business leaders know it, opinion makers know it, the rest of the world knows it. In a way, we all here know it. But it is not self-evident for a majority of our citizens in Europe, although we can't complain in this country about European awareness. And this growing Euro-negativism also is a political reality. However, something is changing here under the pressure of the financial crisis. We are now realizing that the euro completely changed the nature of our union, that it was a game changer. Up until then, Europe was often spoken of in idealistic, abstract terms. And even when its concrete achievements affected people's life, it was always in positive terms. Win-win was the only game in town. With the euro crisis, for the very first time, citizens are confronted with the hard fact that some costs come alongside the benefits. For instance, the costs and efforts to defend a common currency during a financial crisis. Citizens are also realizing now for the very first time that they are in this together, that what happens in one country is affecting the other countries, that what happens in another country with banks, bubbles and budgets affects them too. Being jointly responsible for a common European good can be a painful discovery for people who are struggling in their own country to find a job or to make ends meet. I strongly disagree with those who conclude hastily that the crisis has killed solidarity between European countries. Not at all. The crisis has revealed what it takes to be in a union. In fact, this is the very first real test of solidarity in the history of the Union. Of course, there are tensions and constraints. There is opposition and critique. There are caricatures and cartoons. I'm very well aware of all that. And yet a gigantic collective effort is taking place, involving all Euro countries, all EU institutions, all citizens, to muster the political will, the parliamentary majorities, and the means and money to help each other and to come out of this crisis together. It is the de facto solidarity of an unprecedented magnitude involving hundreds of billions of euro. Nobody should underestimate this joint political determination. Of course, when we sit together around the European Council table and during Eurozone summits, taking tough decisions on rescue deals or budget rules, I cannot read the thoughts and motives of all individual leaders. Yet in that room, something is very clear. We are not just working for the euro survival and sustainability. No, we are working for the survival of the European idea, and more positively, for its success, for Europe's success. Safeguarding the legacy of our founding fathers and securing a better future for the next generation. Ladies and gentlemen, at the start of this new academic year, which is also the opening of a European political season in large part dedicated to the euro, I should like to give you some concrete reasons why I'm confident that we will get there. I'm not using the word optimism. It is a too superficial feeling. Confidence is deeper and is lasting. And there are three reasons. The first reason: the EU leaders have reached a final understanding on an important aspect of the crisis, its systemic nature. They all recognize that the crisis is not only the sum of the problems of individual countries, but also the result of deficiencies in the architecture of the economic and monetary union as a whole. And we Europeans had given ourselves a common currency without the means to defend it. We relied mainly on rules without the means and tools to enforce them or to manage a crisis. We dramatically deepened our economic and financial interdependence, but without drawing all the political consequences. We have a common currency, but we had no common policy. And here, the truth is very simple also. Clearly, over the past 2 years, we addressed some of the most obvious deficiencies. But now, we need to take a qualitative jump. What has changed in the past few months is the determination to go to the heart of the matter. All Eurozone leaders are now putting every issue on the table without taboos. It is urgent work, yet we must do it properly. Quick fixes won't do. All leaders also recognize that we cannot solve our short-term problems without addressing the longer-term challenges. Indeed, if we want investors to buy 10-year government bonds, we need to show them where we want the Eurozone to be in 10 years' time. And if we want our citizens to support decisions which for many entail a period of sacrifices, hardship and costs, we must convince them that these efforts are worthwhile, that things are going to get better. We will be judged finally on our results. The work has to be done not only because Brussels imposes it, but because we have to safeguard our future. So we have a chance to finish a house half built. It is our historic duty to seize it. And that's why Eurozone leaders asked me to steer an in-depth reflection on the economic and monetary union. I have already given my first thoughts in an initial report in June, and we are now in the next phase of this reflection, which we will conclude in December. In its end state, we will have a banking union, a fiscal union, an economic union, and a deeper political union. Ladies and gentlemen, let me come to the second reason why I'm confident we will overcome the crisis. All our member states are carrying out ambitious economic reforms that are producing results. It is not only a matter of making up for the excesses of the past, but also of adapting to an ever more competitive world. In a way, a test of responsibility after a test of solidarity. These structural reforms are key for the economic future of our countries to secure growth and create jobs. And we see real progress. Eurozone economies under pressure are regaining competitiveness, and harmful imbalances in the euro area, which are at the root of our problems, are being reduced. Take trade. Current account balances in all southern European countries have steadily improved over the past 3 years. Spain's large current account deficit of 10% of GDP before the crisis has been largely closed. The country is even a net exporter to the rest of the Eurozone now. Portugal and Greece have reduced their current account deficit by 2/3. In the case of Greece, from more than 17 to around 6% of GDP. And mind you, this is thanks to more export and better competitiveness rather than import compression. Nowhere else in the Union are exports growing faster, ladies and gentlemen, than in Greece. Progress in structural reforms is also substantial. The developments in nominal labor cost is another good indicator. The competitiveness gap in this regard between northern and southern member states has been reduced by half compared to 2008. And if you compare Greece to Germany, the gap has been reduced by 2/3. This is due to considerable efforts from member states facing market pressure. In Italy, the government of Prime Minister Monti carried out impressive reforms, breaking monopolies, cutting red tape, fighting against vested interests, and working hard to create jobs. And Ireland is making such good progress on all fronts that since July, Dublin is back to the international bond markets, attracting considerable investment from the United States. On fiscal policy, we often forget that, for instance, Greece has cyclically adjusted its deficit with 11% of GDP over 3 years. Policies are really converging in the Eurozone. I repeat, internal and external competitiveness is key to rebalance the Eurozone, to stabilize it on a sustainable basis. I also add that the measures taken by the member states have to be inspired by a sense of social justice. The stronger shoulders should carry the heaviest burden. It is particularly true in Greece, where during decades tax collection was neglected. This damaged both public finances and social cohesion. Reforms do pay off. Many examples show it. But reforms need time to be decided and time to yield results. And they take time to show up in indicators, let alone to have an impact on the real economy and on employment. So, which brings me to my third point, a third reason to have confidence we will get there. Whilst these reforms are underway, Europe stands ready to help when help is needed. The high risk premia for some countries are not always justified and can be disconnected from economic fundamentals and reform efforts. And I speak mildly when I speak in those terms. Even the historically low interest rates in some countries are too low. The markets don't necessarily reflect the real world. They have spoken, but they are not always right. And high risk premia can have negative repercussions for the stability of the Eurozone as a whole. For such cases, we have tools and a clear political commitment to do more. In June, European leaders affirmed that they were ready to use existing stability instruments of the EFSF, ESM in a flexible and efficient manner. And 1 week ago, the European Central Bank presented a framework under which substantial action can be taken, provided member states carry on their adjustment efforts. Those efforts are changing the climate somewhat, but the reform work, is not yet over. So we have a triptych: short-term actions to safeguard financial stability, a long-term vision for the economic and monetary union, and deep reforms in each and every country. And this triptych makes the euro irreversible. Ladies and gentlemen, the huge joint effort of European governments is directed at an important public good: stability. Stability, monetary stability, political stability is underestimated as long as it is there. You only see it once you miss it. That's unfortunately a lesson of life in general. But monetary stability is not a goal in itself. It's only a means to create economic growth and jobs. I want to emphasize this tonight, not least for all the students who may be worried for their future, or for that of friends or cousins in Spain, in Greece, or elsewhere in Europe, who pay a price in this time of transition. The end goal is clear and shared by all. Europe must remain this very attractive continent in which to live and work, create wealth and spend it for all citizens. And for that we need growth, quality growth. To achieve this, the needs for your clients, for business, are clear. And summarizing, I see four. They need ideas, an innovative environment, especially in manufacturing industry. They need people with all sorts of skills and abilities. They need capital and liquidity to finance investments and to do business. And they also need markets to sell and to source. These four fronts determine the conditions for growth and jobs. And they are at the heart of Europe's growth strategy. Innovation and research, bank credit and venture capital, labor markets, international trade. Despite the crisis, we have been pushing forward on all these fronts, and we will carry on doing so. The bulk of the work lies with the member states, but we have an overall European strategy. Again, the truth is simple. We are fully aware we do this in a highly competitive international environment. But we see this as an opportunity. International trade, provided it takes place on a level playing field, is a vital engine for growth. The example of Germany proves that Europe is perfectly capable to fight its corner as an exporter of high-quality goods. We stand to benefit enormously from the abolition of non-tariff barriers. Trade negotiations with the United States could potentially have a huge impact. We are not there yet, but there is a new wind on both sides of the ocean. Many companies are doing excellent business in China, but there is still a large untapped potential, which is also the case with Japan. Trade is a two-way street, and here also we are working on it. Global relations are not only about markets, but also about people. It is often said that there is a global competition for talent, a scramble for talent. This is true, but it can convey the wrong impression that this is an elite issue. In fact, the need for skills is a concern at all levels. There are more than 2 million vacancies in the Union, and I presume we are not looking for 2 million Albert Einsteins. So we must make sure that our citizens can go where the jobs are, and also that our workforce remain the most skilled in the world. And that is exactly what you at Vlerick Business School are doing every single day. But ladies and gentlemen, over and beyond all this essential work, we collectively need something else too: enthusiasm. Today we are too often prisoners of a mentality of fear, of polarization, and thinking in terms of enemies, rather than in terms of hope and cooperation. Neither Europe nor the United States should fall into this trap. Even if we all know that the costs of non-Europe would be gigantic, the European idea cannot be reduced to a calculus of interests, to a sum of added values with pluses and minuses. No, just as Europe is opening borders between countries, so it is also opening the minds of people. Europe is a unifying idea. The European Union is not a source of problems, but of solutions. The Union is not a threat to jobs, but a source of jobs. And these days, we need defenders of the European case, of the European idea. There are enough Euro-critical voices. Ce n'est pas ça qui manque. It requires courage to stand as a European. A silent majority feels European, certainly in this very country. But if those who support openness remain silent, they may not remain a majority forever. Ladies and gentlemen, this is what I wanted to tell you tonight. A simple message, a simple truth. Thank you.